Chapter 1875 Commander, have you ever lost? Brian rubbed his big nose after hearing Zhang Yi's words. A big fat lie, bro. I don't know anything about this because it's a secret of the Columbia government. You know, if they really find that colonizing Mars works, they will definitely build spaceships secretly without telling anyone, and then transfer themselves first. Zhang Yi nodded and felt that it also made a lot of sense. But, with your status and position, you don't know about this? Brian helplessly spread his hands. The professor is a madman, he is crazy about this catastrophe. He always wants to stay here to study the evolution of life and try to find the mystery of the universe. I can only stay with him. But I believe that with his abilities, it is not difficult for him to really go out into the universe. Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow. I don't know if Brian is deliberately hiding something or if it really is as he says. But one thing is for sure, the Mars immigration is a secret of the Columbia government, and it is not easy to obtain accurate information. I have to find out more. Okay, it seems I can only slowly investigate this matter. But according to our agreement, I will give you the corresponding compensation. But as you know, in the end I didn't succeed in obtaining the treasure of the mighty god-level civilization, so just let me know what you need. Food, energy, weapons, whatever. Brian stared at the camera, and it was strangely silent for several seconds. Zhang Yi even suspected that the network had frozen. However, after a while, it spoke. I haven't thought about it yet. You can owe me for now, and I'll let you know when I think of what I need. Zhang Yi shrugged, as you wish. At their level, they really weren't interested in ordinary supplies. The Natural Science Laboratory has priority access to the supplies of the entire Fremons, and Brian, as a dog, is even less interested in those things. So that's it for today, see you later. Zhang Yi was about to end the communication, but Brian lifted his paw to stop him. Wait, Chaos. Is that it? Zhang Yi, huh? Brian looked at him and said, why do you seem so unconcerned about all the strange things that have been happening in Fremons? It's very strange. He stared at Zhang Yi suspiciously, for example, the dark giant that fought the 4 knights. You haven't mentioned it at all. And now the whole world is going crazy because of him. Zhang Yi's eyes dropped. Brian, his voice was a little tired. I'm so tired. The world is becoming more and more absurd, and more things are beyond our understanding. Humans and dogs alike are like bacteria attached to a leaf in the middle of a huge wave. Any one of the waves will destroy us. I've experienced so many things in this time, and I'm so shocked that I'm numb. He sighed. Just live your life. Zhang Yi ended the call with Brian. He touched his nose. He didn't expect the dog to be so smart and almost discovered something was wrong with him. As for Brian, he looked at the black screen and then looked in the other direction in the laboratory. Professor Da Vinci, with his unkempt silver hair, held 2 test tubes in his hands and looked left and right with sharp eyes before confirming the measurement was correct and then combining them. A thump. A white smoke rose from the beaker, and then the 2 originally transparent solutions produced a strange change after being combined. Countless thick bubbles began to emerge, overflowing the beaker. A sound that was neither crying nor laughing could vaguely be heard coming from inside the beaker, somewhat similar to the sound of a baby. Da Vinci, did you hear what he just said? Da Vinci glanced at him with small eyes, his voice cold and a little impatient. He said while doing the experiment, I heard it. But it's just stupid nonsense to get people to cooperate. He's a very cunning guy, it's impossible to get any useful information out of him. Brian walked up behind him and watched as he took some of the liquid in the beaker and placed it on top of the petri dish. The wriggling white, slimy liquid seemed to be twisting as if it were about to give birth to some kind of living creature. Brian's brows knitted together in disgust. It feels like you're creating maggots, which is really disgusting. Da Vinci immediately yelled in dissatisfaction, Hey, you ignorant dog who doesn't understand science. Don't use your filthy mouth to comment on my scientific research. He carefully protected the beaker as if he was afraid Brian would knock it over. This thing is the result of years of hard work. He stared at the white, slimy liquid wriggling strangely inside the beaker, his voice low and tinged with excitement. I feel like I'm slowly beginning to touch the realm of the divine. If the world really is as I think it is, then this will definitely work. Brian, although I really hate your self-righteousness, and sometimes I even want to remake you from scratch, I have to say that the information you brought back behind those mysterious gates of light has been very helpful to me. Brian put his hands behind his head and said nonchalantly, really, I don't understand what you've been doing. But then again, there are powerful mutants in so many countries around the world. But why are you so interested in chaos? Brian asked, voicing his own question. Da Vinci narrowed his eyes at this. You want to know why, don't you? He carefully placed the beaker in a safe and then turned to Brian, arms folded, and stared at him. The evolution of life is nothing special, it's just that the catastrophe accelerated the process. So, there will always be a portion of life forms that become stronger and stronger, adapting to the world. The so-called bishop-level mutants, oh my god, are nothing in the face of truly powerful ancient creatures. But, his voice became low, and his gaze was unusually solemn. That chaos guy, there is something really scary about him. Brian was a little intimidated by Da Vinci. He swallowed and asked, what is it? Da Vinci said, the dark power he uses. The power he calls from the void. Brian shrugged, didn't you say it yourself? All supernatural powers are just different manifestations of energy, there's no difference. No. Da Vinci said solemnly, the power in him is different. Because that thing doesn't come from him at all. It's the opposite of this world. Brian is 13 years old this year, and he is an old dog that is about to die. After being modified by Da Vinci, he has been given a new life. Having followed Da Vinci for many years, he has absorbed and remembered a lot of scientific knowledge. So when he heard this, his pupils contracted slightly, and the one word that came out was, antimatter. Antimatter is a concept of physical matter proposed in modern times. The theory holds that the material world is immersed in a sea of negatively charged electrons. When an electron is excited from a negative energy level, the vacancy left behind is filled by a particle with the same mass as an electron but the opposite charge, i.e. a positive electron. Since physics has observed that electrons in the physical world are all negative, a positive electron is therefore an antimatter particle. The scientific community subsequently confirmed the existence of positive electrons, and has successively discovered antiprotons and antineutrons. In other words, any particle may have an antiparticle counterpart, and matter composed of antiparticles is called antimatter. Put simply, it's like a mirror image. Brian's reaction was so strong because when antimatter collides with matter, a huge burst of energy is released, causing annihilation. The power of that energy is far greater than that produced by any other material in the world. Da Vinci said solemnly, that guy hasn't discovered the horror of his power yet. He doesn't even understand the principles of that power, and he just uses it like gunpowder. If he ever discovers the true use of this power, I can't imagine how terrifying he will become. Having said this, Da Vinci suddenly revealed a white set of teeth and laughed with an exaggerated expression. Maybe destroying the entire world isn't impossible. Brian winced and shivered. Don't say such horrible things, okay? Da Vinci gave him a cold glare. You don't understand science at all. Forget it, I'd better just focus on my research. Once my research results are created, they will definitely change the world. By then, even if we face those ancient civilizations, we won't necessarily lose to them. Zhang Yi contacted a number of people and received messages from several major regions. He just casually responded to them. However, as expected, he received a letter from King Arthur. Chaos, the battlefield of Fremons has come to an end. I hope you don't forget the battle we promised to have. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. Now that his strength has increased tremendously, he is fully confident in defeating King Arthur. However, at the moment, he has a lot on his plate and doesn't have time to fight him. What's more, if they really have to fight, they have to be well prepared. Zhang Yi said, the Fremons incident is not over yet. Ichigard will appear at any time, and we must first secure our own rear. King Arthur's mouth curled up at the mention of this. Chaos, I have always maintained a heart of full respect for the strong. But for you, the smile on the corner of his mouth grew even wider. Although he didn't say anything, he slowly shook his head. What happened at the last trial level made him very dissatisfied with Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi raised an eyebrow and pretended not to know what had happened. King Arthur said, "Let's set a time. I will announce the news at that time so that the whole world will know. If you avoid the battle, I will consider you to be a man of great ability." Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes. "Foreigner, you really think I'm afraid of you?" "Great. You don't really think I'm afraid of you, do you?" King Arthur couldn't have asked for more. "How long do you need to prepare?" Zhang Yi thought for a moment and gave his own time. 1 month from now. Also, I will decide the exact time and place. King Arthur said, "It cannot be within the borders of the Huashu Kingdom. It has to be in a third-party area, so that it is fair." He was now more cautious with Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi also said, "Fine. However, the news of our duel can be announced, but the location of the duel must be kept secret." He didn't want his information to be leaked. King Arthur said, "Of course." Zhang Yi said, "Let me think about it, and I will let you know when I have chosen a location." "Okay, I hope you will keep your promise and show up." Zhang Yi sneered, "That goes without saying." After the call ended, Zhang Yi lay on the sofa and pondered for a while. After being bathed in the spiritual ocean and absorbing the origin of Ichigard, his strength had increased tremendously, reaching 35,000 points. In addition, he had awakened new abilities, making his combat power unprecedentedly powerful. According to common sense, he should be able to defeat King Arthur with ease. However, being as cautious as he always was, he still wanted to be fully prepared before going into battle. After all, on the battlefield of Fremons, he had never seen King Arthur fight at full strength. After all, he was a fierce man who could single-handedly defeat an underground civilization with the Knights of the Round Table, so he could not afford to underestimate his opponent. After much thought, he decided to set the battlefield on the sea. King Arthur was a swordsman, and his sword was his main method of combat. On the open sea, he would have to use a flying device to get airborne, so he would not be able to swing his sword as freely as he could on land. Zhang Yi's combat, however, did not depend on terrain. So after opening the world map, Zhang Yi finally chose a small, desolate and remote island in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of the South China Sea as the battlefield. Having made up his mind, he decided to discuss it with Yang Xinxin again. He went to Yang Xinxin's study, knocked on the door, and when he went in, he found that the room was full of all kinds of information projected in 3 dimensions. "Xinxin, what are you looking for again?" Zhang Yi asked curiously. Yang Xinxin replied, "Our biggest threat at the moment is the Drucker Titan, which has the power to destroy the world. Underground civilizations used to be the masters of the planet. They had a high level of spirituality and maintained wisdom and reason. However, the Drucker Titan only has the desire to destroy and devour. These guys are the most dangerous. If we aren't careful, the human civilization will be destroyed by them." She pulled the hem of her shirt down to reveal the same demon eye mark as Zhang Yi. "And the first ones to be targeted will definitely be us." Zhang Yi felt a headache coming on. His heart, which had been pleased with his improved strength, felt a little heavier. He sat cross-legged in front of Yang Xinxin. "Did you get anything?" "A lot." A gleam of hope shone in Yang Xinxin's eyes. "I have reviewed ancient texts from all over the world, and combined with the accounts of the Yihan tribe knights, I have obtained very important information. The Drucker Titans are indeed powerful, but they are not invincible." Zhang Yi rubbed his chin, a glimmer of hope ignited in his heart, but he was also a little puzzled. That's a race that even the creator, Kagago, was unable to completely destroy, so who else could deal with them? Yang Xinxin winked at Zhang Yi. "Brother, don't you forget. The creator is just unable to destroy them, but not unable to defeat them. Even the Yihan tribe, if they were not unwilling to fight because they had lost their faith, and the Drucker god tribe could not be killed, they might not have needed to hide from them. Previous generations have all waged long wars with Drucker. This shows that they have all resisted such existences in the past, and were not slaughtered one-sidedly. She pointed at the ancient books in front of her. You see, it is recorded in the Holy Scriptures that Lucifer, one of the demon kings of hell, was once the attendant of the Creator, and eventually led 1/3 of the angels to fall and rebel. However, he was eventually defeated by the angelic army led by the archangel Michael, and eventually fell into hell. Perhaps archangels such as Michael and Raphael were the ancient powerful beings of the Ehen tribe. In my judgment, the four knights led by Ling have the strength to contend with the Drucker Titan. But they were unable to kill Drucker completely, and could only seal it. Every so often, Drucker would chew through the seal, reappear in the world, and continue to kill and devour. This is how the war that spanned many generations of intelligent beings and multiple species began. She flipped through the ancient texts that had been projected. For example, in Nordic mythology, the Titans who were sealed and then broke free and destroyed the entire Nordic pantheon. In the ancient myths and legends of the Huashu kingdom, the primordial beasts that roamed the world in the age of chaos, bringing calamity and disaster. Ancient humans, or angels who protected humans, defeated and sealed them. This is how Xuanxu's Jedi Heaven's Force came to be. I now suspect that the Drucker Titan we saw that day was the ancient legendary beast of the flood, the Candle Dragon. According to the classic of mountains and seas, northern extremity of the great wilderness, there is the Jiangwei Mountain, beyond the northwest sea and north of the Red Water. There is a god with a human face and a serpent's body, red in color, with straight eyes and riding a chariot. Its eyes are dark, its vision is clear, it never eats or sleeps, and it visits the world in rain and wind. It is the candle of the 9 Eons, it is the candle of the dragon. The one-eyed dark Drucker Titan fits this description very well. Zhang Yi understood what Yang Xinxin meant. You mean that although we cannot kill this terrifying monster, as long as we can seal it, we can prevent the end of the world, right? Yang Xinxin nodded. It seems to be the case so far. Drucker is the most immediate threat to the end of the world. Zhang Yi's eyes rolled back as he recalled what he had seen that day. Even now, the memory still gave him the chills as a mutant of the White Bishop level. In the face of the Drucker Titan and the four knights led by Ling, he felt as weak as an ant. Its power was unimaginable and would last forever. Seal it? Have you ever seen an ant bury an elephant? Zhang Yi couldn't help but shiver. This was going to be difficult. So, does the ancient book have a method for sealing them? Zhang Yi looked at Yang Xinxin with great hope. Yang Xinxin shook his head. No. But even if there was, I guess they would have to be defeated by force first before they could be sealed. Otherwise, why would there have been continuous wars with the Drucker gods in ancient times? Zhang Yi was speechless. What's the point of talking about it? Forget it, I'd better think about how to escape. Zhang Yi temporarily stopped thinking about such distant troubles. With his current abilities, he could only take things one step at a time. In the time that followed, Tianhai City ushered in a period of peaceful and harmonious development. The reconstruction of the Tianhai fortress was going very smoothly under the leadership of Lu Karen. Having already reached level Epsilon, she used her abilities to create a large amount of materials, including barrier stones and brand new e-metals, to form 3 heavy barriers. Bai Li Changqing, on the other hand, took charge of the laborers and worked on the details. Deng Shintong brought a lot of machinery and experimental materials from his hometown to build a Deng technology laboratory in the Tianhai fortress. This was a really complete shift towards Zhang Yi's camp. However, it is feared that it will take a long time to win Zhang Yi's trust if he wants to join Zhang Yi's inner circle. On the construction site, Fatty Su stretched out his hands, and immediately, snow and ice rose up into the sky. The ground above him cracked open with a loud rumble, and large sections of ice were lifted up to create a snow house. After absorbing the spirit of sacrifice, his strength had improved significantly. Although he had not yet entered Epsilon's realm, he was already far superior to before. The workers around him saw this and their eyes shone with admiration, applauding. No wonder you are the commander of the heavenly palace, you are just too strong. Oh my, I wish I had that kind of strength. Hey, a genius is a genius. I only have beta-level potential, and at best I can only be a manual laborer carrying equipment around the base. I'm afraid I'll never be able to reach the level of Marshal Tianpeng in this lifetime. Fatty Sue's mouth curled up slightly at the rainbow farts from those around him. He rested his arms on his chest and leaned against a newly built ice fortress, his legs crossed, his long hair in front of his face hiding half of his face. Heh, what a fuss. Just such petty tricks and you're already impressed? The people around him fell silent, ashamed of their fuss, and looked at Fatty Sue with even more admiration. Fatty Sue said indifferently, after the end of the world, I followed the Supreme, fought battles north and south, and experienced dozens of battles, big and small. On the line between life and death, I fought 7 times in and out. To this day, I don't have a single scar on my body. What is Neon Eclipse Moon Mutant, which is called the Columbia Navy, not to mention the lizard people of the Wulwan Empire? Ha, they are all my defeated enemies. Clap, clap, clap. There was a sound of gasps and loud applause. A young fan looked at Fatty Sue with adoring eyes. But he couldn't help asking, Commander, have you ever lost? Fatty Sue tilted his head and looked at him with a detached and aloof expression. The young fan shrunk his neck. But Fatty Sue said in a reminiscing tone, in my life, I have only lost once.